Coffee Hour. Welcome to Coffee with our morning host. We broadcast a host of programs like current topics, newspaper headlines, and music on Radio Sri Lanka. Tune in every weekday from 7 to 8 a.m.
That's right, it's the Coffee Hour this Tuesday morning, and I'm sharing the studio, the microphone, and the next 40 minutes or so with Mr. Kolitha Ranawaka, Director of the National Institute of Business Management, School of Business. Top of the morning to you, Kolitha, and a very warm welcome to Coffee Hour.
Good morning, Sandy.
And may I take this opportunity to thank you for accepting our invite and starting your day with me in the studio of Radio Sri Lanka.
It's a pleasure.
All right, and well, we're going to talk today on the importance of youth entrepreneurship in the present context and the future in Sri Lanka. When we drop the word entrepreneurship, we would simply think it as a startup or a beginning of something. But I guess actually it has a deeper and significant meaning. The definition, of course, has remained constant for decades, but with the possibilities for aspiring entrepreneurs, it has come a very, very long way. So, well, could you tell us what youth entrepreneurship actually is and what it is all about?
Well, Sandy, entrepreneurship is something that keeps this world moving on. People do have a lot of needs, and there are others who would really want to cater to these needs, to fulfill these needs, and make money out of that. So entrepreneurship is all about that. It's about taking maybe a little bit of risk and identifying the needs, unfulfilled needs of the society, and coming up with products or services that could fulfill those requirements of the needs of the society, and rather making money out of that as well. So this is something that has been happening in the world for thousands of years, and still we do talk about this because it's so important to the society. It, as I mentioned at the very, very beginning, it's the force that keeps on this world moving. And very specifically with regard to youth entrepreneurship. Now, youth, of course, there are a range of definitions, across the world. The UN definition is about the age limit they refer to is like 16 to 24. Whereas in Sri Lanka, we officially say 16 to 30, and in certain contexts, they refer to even people up to 35. So whatever the age it is, youth entrepreneurship is so important because that is the generation who has the highest level of energy within themselves, highest capacity to do this, highest level of endurance within themselves, so that they could kind of develop a kind of maybe a very small idea to a huge business one day. So that's what I can tell you at the very beginning.
Right, and talking of the resources available for these young people to start and grow their business, is it a conducive environment presently?
If you look at the global context and the Sri Lankan context, I would say entrepreneurship is not something, or starting up a business is not something that you think would succeed within a couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever. It is a constant process that you have to go through. And as you mentioned, the environment, I don't want to give a judgment right now, a very clear judgment telling whether it's conducive or not. But there are a range of factors, supportive factors. There are a range of factors which are not supportive as well. It depends on the country. Sometimes it depends on the society, even the social perceptions, and also it depends on various other economic factors, social factors, technology, so on and so forth. So looking at the present situation, I would say, this is my personal judgment, there is a kind of a climate that is growing up that is becoming very supportive for those people who want to start up businesses. Rather than being very pessimistic and telling, no, there are a lot of problems, this and that. Problems were there in this world, every day. But then those entrepreneurs, those businesses, if you look at, who have become successful, are like people who have come through those obstacles, who have found their way through those obstacles to the success. So, say my judgment is there is a conducive environment. The reasoning I'm giving is like there's so much of technological support. There is so much of knowledge available all across the world because of the technology, because of the online platforms and all that. There's so much of advisory. There's so much of people who are willing to support this kind of, and agencies who are willing to support this kind of things. So I think there's so much support available.
Yeah, we spoke on a whole heap of resources just now, Kolitha, but talking of one particular resource, which I guess is of vital importance in starting up and in entrepreneurship, is the financial resource. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, correct. Very correct.
All right. So perhaps in decades gone by, if one didn't have a financial resource, maybe to make a product, maybe to get the raw material for it, well, that was the end of the story. But I don't think that happens anymore, isn't it? I guess there is lots of financial support too for these young people who are ready, willing and able to get going and start something new that's going to be innovative and perhaps even a game changer.
It's like this, Soundy. Like, if you really look at someone coming up with a new business idea, you may not find someone who would straight away come and say, "Okay, let me fund your idea." It takes a little time. A lot of people who have done successful startups, are people who have kind of saved some money for themselves, or whose family and friends have supported them to start it.
Would the banks support them? Would a bank support such entrepreneurship?
Well, looking from a bank's point of view, a bank, for them to lend money, they should have some assurance of repayment. They should have some, because the bank's money is public money anyway. So, you have to have some assurance about it.
Yes.
So banks might be reluctant at the very beginning unless you have a kind of a good track record behind you to give it. But my advice to the youth who really want to start up is to, save some money, start at a smaller scale and keep on growing. And at a particular point, the banks will come behind you. Right? That is the reality that I have seen. Right. But also, if it is a kind of a very promising idea, if you really can convince the bank, it's not only the banks, but also there can be angel investors. There can be various other agencies who are ready to support you. But your idea, you have to kind of market your idea. You have to convince those parties that your idea would be really workable and it would really reap benefits, because investors are not people who do charity.
That's right.
They are looking for a good return on their investment. So you have to at least convince them. And also there is one more point that I want to make. Say any of those like banks or angel investors or anyone else would also like to see that you also share part of the risk of the business. So from your side, you should have some kind of input, maybe some of the resources, better if certain financial resources could come from your side. So my advice initially is to kind of, start up with some money saved behind you, or maybe your family, some of your friends can help you, or you might do a kind of a job for a couple of years to earn some money. I mean, there are a lot of people, examples who've done that, earned a certain amount of money, having an idea in their mind, and then within a couple of years kind of, become entrepreneurs.
And how do we see the importance of entrepreneurship in the Sri Lankan and the global context?
Well, talking about the global context, as I mentioned in the very beginning,
yes,
entrepreneurship is the thing that keeps on this world moving on. Because entrepreneurs are the people who make this, the wheel called the economy, rolling forward in the society. And entrepreneurs are the people who actually provide employment to others. From one side, they fulfill the requirements, the needs of the society. Now, look at ourselves, like we eat food, we wear clothes, we do fulfill, we do have various other kinds of needs.
Yes.
Or those needs we do fulfill because there are entrepreneurs to supply those. They are there to kind of, fulfill those needs. So we pay them and kind of, fulfill our needs. So the whole world is running on this. And in the Sri Lankan context, entrepreneurship is becoming very important, has become very important, rather, at this particular juncture where we've come to a very challenging point in our economy. If you look at countries like Japan, soon after the Second World War, they had to kind of rejuvenate their whole economy. And it was the entrepreneurs who actually brought up the economy back to today's level. And inside Sri Lanka also, I don't want to say you got to start up big businesses overnight, but those who really want to start up, this is a very good climate that they can start up businesses. The only thing is you got to identify real requirements of the society, real requirements of customers, real markets for you guys. That's if that could be done, I think your venture would be very, very successful. So in the Sri Lankan context, again, the economy, from an economic point of view, or from a kind of a future development point of view, this is something really, really important, and it will have a lot of room for growth, I can assure.
We were just in conversation about what we were going to discuss next on Coffee Hour. Well, we're talking this morning to Kolitha Ranawaka, and we're talking about the importance of youth entrepreneurship to the present context and the future context of Sri Lanka. And well, he is the director, the National Institute of Business Management, School of Business. And well, Kolitha, talking of some of the success stories of young entrepreneurs, well, what would come to mind on some of the stories of what people have done, which have been game changers?
Yes, there have been a lot of stories comes into my mind. But,
right.
Unfortunately, I might not be able to mention names.
Absolutely.
But I would mention some of the industries. Now, I'll start from tech entrepreneurship, where some of those who have gone into the invention of new technologies, or to do some things in a better manner than that someone else was doing.
Right.
Or were brought in technological solutions. Say, for example, in one story where now one thing I want to mention before that, most of these people have actually started up their ventures maybe because they're faced with some problem themselves.
Right.
Right. And they have been thinking kind of how to resolve those problems, which eventually converted into a business idea. And then they've kind of, develop that up to a business venture. So that has been there. I mean, starting from, I do have to get permission to mention Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook,
Right.
The current CEO of, and the owner of the Facebook and Meta platforms. Now, Mark Zuckerberg started up on Facebook just because he was looking for a solution to connect with his friends and family and to keep himself updated on what's going on within his circle. And that was thereafter further developed into something that we call Facebook today. And the Meta group today, which he eventually kind of started kind of buying up other companies, other tech companies, and kind of, developing the business up to the modern level. I mean, I don't have to explain so much about Facebook. Everyone knows what Facebook is. So, always, in most of the cases, there have been kind of, people who are looking for solutions for their problems, who've converted this to their kind of their own business. Some of the Sri Lankan examples, again, I don't want to mention names, where I know one particular entrepreneur who actually had some problems in his lighting system in the home. He had problems. It was very interesting. Had problems in switching on and switching off lights from his room and controlling the rest of the lighting in his house. Because other people, when he gets up, go open the doors and goes out and all that, the rest of the people might get disturbed. So he designed a system, an electronic system, which from one place he could kind of control the lighting and the power supplies of the whole house. And later he actually commercialized it, and it's available in the market. I don't want to kind of mention brand names. And
yes, that's right.
But see, these are like practical problems that people have been facing, which they've found solutions and marketed those solutions to the rest of the world as well, and they're making money. They're making big money. And going out of tech entrepreneurship to usual business, I have some of my students even started up, further developed their parents' businesses into. One example is like someone whose parent was running what you call a kade, kind of, a convenience store, small store, into a kind of a high-tech supermarket. There, the focus was like, is like to make the facility more customer friendly, more user friendly, high tech, and more modern, so that you attract a lot of people that you never attracted earlier. So sometimes you don't have to kind of reinvent an ongoing business, but you might improve with tech support an ongoing business. And also, there is this fever of migrating these days.
That's right.
Everyone wants to migrate. I've seen some people who migrated and stuck into the jobs. Employing or employment or doing a job is the other side of entrepreneurship. You just work for a company, work for a person, earn a monthly salary or an hourly wage or whatever, and you're limited to that. When you become an entrepreneur, your limits are
the sky.
Right? So there are, I've seen, I'm in contact with a lot of my students, a lot of my family who are living overseas. See, people who have come out of this cage of employment have grown up so much, with maybe starting with very, very, very smaller businesses. Now, there are people who have started up restaurants, cake shops, maybe maybe various other kinds of smaller businesses in other countries. Sri Lankans have moved out to other places. So even my advice is to those youngsters who are like, in the queues, waiting to sometimes move overseas, get that exposure, or maybe live abroad until wherever they want to. The best thing is, like, if you could become an entrepreneur overseas, your prospects are much more higher. One example, let me tell you, like an electrical engineer who moved into Melbourne with his engineering qualifications, decided to kind of within his first year, he decided to come out of that engineering so-called job and to start up his own company servicing air conditioners and installing air conditioners, which has been a kind of a big requirement maybe for the last 20-30 years in a country like Australia, especially in Melbourne, where you got kind of weird sometimes climate at times. So he has become very successful, employing 70-80 people under him right now. I can come up with such examples, a lot of examples, though we are kind of confronted with time. What you really require is your willingness to go out of that cage, that whatever I know you want to call it, that iron cage that you're in, and kind of explore, right? But sometimes it might not be possible for you to do a job and while doing the job become an entrepreneur. It might be not very possible at certain times. Certain times might be possible also. If you're doing a job, my advice is save some money if you really want to become an entrepreneur. Start up with that money without going for a loan initially. And then, of course, you can kind of expand, whenever your business is ready to expand.
Yes, talking of something that is very pertinent to Sri Lanka. Well, the global pandemic hit world over and also affected Sri Lanka big time. So, wouldn't that too have been a good period for the young people to have started something of their own? Because maybe some of them would have lost their jobs because of overstaffing or whatever reasons. They would have been made redundant. And I feel because going on the trend, that would have been a conducive situation for them to get into something of their own, to be innovative in order to keep the boat sailing. Exactly.
Now, this is one of the good aspects, the beauties of the pandemic, I would say. The pandemic opened up so much room for people to start up their own businesses, own ventures, and it created a large number of new needs and requirements in the society. Say, for example, some of the immediate requirements that were that popped up in the society were the healthcare requirements, starting from stuff like sanitizer, maybe gloves, maybe face masks and all that. Starting from that to maybe fast food ventures. There were hundreds of fast food ventures I do know that were started up by those, as you mentioned, who lost their jobs because of the pandemic, or they were just laid off, or maybe given golden handshakes by the company. But then they started up into fast food. Some of them started up into even entertainment, into maybe beauty culture, might be into some of them also went into apparel manufacturing, or various other kinds of manufacturing, within the society itself. And also, there was another fraction who started up, this is something very important, who started up with exporting, right? Exporting is the very first step to start up a multinational or a global business. It's the very first step in that long process.
Right.
But you got to start up somewhere. And there are a large number of Sri Lankans after the pandemic who started up with export business, especially with the stuff that is available in Sri Lanka, like fruits, vegetables, maybe handicrafts, maybe various other kind of stuff like pottery or, stuff like that. They found export markets in the other parts of the world and buyers and then kind of started, doing it. And some of them have now moved their offices also into other countries. Unfortunately, I can't name these companies. I don't have permission to do that. They have started up offices in other countries. They've grown up. They've recruited. They've provided more employment to other Sri Lankans, as well as to some of the foreigners. So this is something really, really beautiful. And as you mentioned, it is one of the hidden blessings that was behind the pandemic.
And talking of the trends in youth entrepreneurship.
Well, the trends are now really into tech entrepreneurship.
Right.
A lot of people would want to start up something related to technology, something related to automation, something related to kind of, you generally can call it technology, but it doesn't have to be like something that you invent something really, really new, really, really new gadget or something, It can be something where like you automate a particular process, you bring in some technological touch to what's happening right now. Say, for example, if you really want, you can automate a restaurant. Right? I've seen personally this kind of restaurants in Japan where you have a conveyor belt going on, the food comes on the belt, and the people do pick up their orders on the belt itself. You can bring in technology to anything that you do. So that is there. And there's so much enthusiasm growing up within the youth for that, because they're all kind of there are a few reasons for this. Number one is like the youngsters these days, they've grown up with the technology, they're familiar with the technology, they are more tech savvy in comparison to the elderly generation. So they and their environment is filled up with technology. And therefore, tech entrepreneurship has become very a real trend in the society. So that's something, and also there are like people who really want to cater into the real social problems. That's also like this is what I call the social entrepreneurship, where like you look at real burning social issues and you try to, maybe in education, maybe in healthcare, maybe in any of the other social contexts where you see various needs coming up. And with regard to, I hope our listeners are familiar with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals declared by the United Nations. There are 17 goals, those, including things like alleviation of poverty, conserving the environment, providing healthcare to everyone, and so on and so forth, and about the resource utilization, and so on and so forth. So, and things like also things like conserving the environment, the sustainability of the environment, and all that. So, aiming at those, there are people who start up businesses. Say, for example, there's so much of plastics being generated in our environments, and there are entrepreneurs who have kind of started up recycling those and converting that into fabric even, or into certain other plastic products. And there's so much of opportunity around us, and these are some of the trends, I should say, right now what we see in the society.
Right. All right. Thank you very much for this lovely insight. And it's the coffee hour, and we have with us in our studio this Tuesday morning Kolitha Ranawaka, the Director, National Institute of Business Management, School of Business, and we're in conversation about the importance of youth entrepreneurship to the present and the future context of Sri Lanka. And well, talking of digital entrepreneurship, would you tell us what it actually means in a nutshell?
Sounded digital entrepreneurship is what we see is happening online. Or like if you can run a business digitally on an internet or web-based platform, we generally call it digital entrepreneurship. So it can be an online store, or it can be any kind of business activity that you run online to make money. We see all these large digital platforms who sells us various kind of stuff. And also like small scale people who sell their products online. Now, digital entrepreneurship is not limited to selling products or goods, but also it is extendable to the level of providing services. So, for example, someone can take up jobs online. Maybe you might be a designer, you might be an artist, you might be someone who's good in writing, doing some kind of other activity of a service, giving a kind of service online to someone else. You could online take up those jobs and kind of cater back online to the your clients, and you can make money. So digital entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship, general entrepreneurship is becoming more or less emerging, I should say.
And how good is it in Sri Lanka? Is it a strong base, like within our shows, within Sri Lanka, this digital entrepreneurship?
Within the Sri Lankan context, there have been a lot of entrepreneurs who have started up their companies. There are Sri Lankan online selling platforms. There are Sri Lankan companies now or individuals who offer their services online. Or you can also kind of join an online platform and market your products or services on that particular platform. So there are a lot of Sri Lankans who are into that.
Right.
I do not have a number as a percentage of Sri Lankans who are how many number, but there is what I can tell you, there's a growing demand or a growing enthusiasm for this particular ventures, and I think most of the youngsters, part of their dreams nowadays to start up something online and prosper online.
Right, and as any given field, whether we are working for somebody else, whether we are working for our own selves, whether we have our own boss, every field has challenges and opportunities. So, what would you think are the challenges and opportunities for youth entrepreneurs in today's economy?
See,
a bit of a difficult one, isn't it?
A difficult question to answer within a few minutes. But there can be difficulties in acquiring the seed funding for it. Right. There can be difficulties in finding the technology that you're looking for, or the kind of the infrastructure you're looking for to support your business, and maybe the manpower or the know-how. But I should tell you that there are solutions to all this. We should never sit back and say, okay, we don't have that, we don't have this. But if you look at all these entrepreneurs who have come up and developed their businesses to a big level, they're all people who have gone through these challenges and found out solutions for those requirements as well. So it's your ability, and there are a lot of people to support you around. That's something what I want to mention. A lot of people, there are a lot of agencies, government agencies. There are a lot of individuals, even maybe universities and various other institutions who would want to support. Now, if anyone would require kind of any conceptual support, advisory support, the National Institute of Business Management is already having a service, a free service, I should say, to provide that kind of input to the up-and-coming entrepreneurs. So we would invite anyone who's interested to come and get our services. We have a very, very prudent faculty or kind of a set of experts who can help them. And there are a lot of people who have already got our support as well.
And in conclusion, Kolitha, what advice would you give to young people who are considering starting their own business?
Well, the only advice I have to give you is like not to stop when you see an obstacle. I mean, when you, in your journey of being an entrepreneur, obstacles are very natural. You should never stop there, and you should understand that there is support somewhere for you. It's a simple exercise of finding out where that support you can get from.
All right, this has been Coffee Hour, and this Tuesday morning I have been in conversation with Kolitha Ranawaka, Director of the National Institute of Business Management, School of Business. And well, Kolitha, may I take this opportunity together with our producer, Indira Navagamua, to thank you very much for visiting us and gracing our studio this Tuesday morning with a very concise insight into the importance of youth entrepreneurship in the present context and the future context in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for accepting our invite and being with us this Tuesday morning.
You're welcome, Soundy. It was a great pleasure for me to be here.
And may I wish you a super Tuesday ahead.
Thank you so much.
The Coffee Hour. Welcome to Coffee with our morning host. We broadcast a host of programs like current topics, newspaper headlines, and music on Radio Sri Lanka. Tune in every weekday from 7 to 8 a.m.